In the previous section, we have learned how to display images on web page. In this section, we will learn to create a complete HTML form. So, what is an HTML form? An HTML form is a document that allows users to input data and send it to the server for further processing. I'm pretty sure that you have used HTML forms for multiple times. If you cannot remember, this example will definitely ring the bell. This is the registration form of Facebook, and it is an HTML form. When you fill up the form and submit it, the information you provide here goes to the server, and the server stores the information and creates an account for you. This is how forms enable interactivity in HTML page. It allows you to interact with the server. In this section, we will cover up to creating the form. We haven't started the server-side development yet. When we will start working with PHP, which is a server-side language, we will integrate the server-side with the form we are going to create here. I'm removing the codes of the previous section, then saving it in the HTML folder as creatingforms.html. Now opening the web page in the browser and closing the previous tab. To create an HTML form, we use form tag. It has both opening and closing tag. The common form elements are input element. It is created using input tag, which is a self-closing tag. Text area element. It is created using opening and closing text area tag. Select element. It is created using opening and closing select tag. Save the code and refresh. It does not look good. These elements are side by side. We can use P element to organize them properly. Put everything in separate P elements. Save the code and reload the web page. Now they are organized. This input field has been created by input tag. This is the text box. It has been created by the text area tag. And this drop-down menu has been created by select tag. I believe you remember what an element is. The combination of opening and closing tag, including the content in between, is called an element. The HTML form is created by opening and closing tag, and in between there are other elements. From here, it is evident that HTML allows element nesting. Simply speaking, you can use element inside element in HTML. Each of the elements has multiple attributes. Do you remember what an attribute is? Attributes are special words. Those come in name-value pair and control the behavior of an element. While building the form, we will see how attributes totally alter the behavior of an element. Let's start with the attribute of the input element. The most common attribute of input element is type attribute. Let's put type equals text and give it a little description. Input type text. Save it and reload the page. Well, nothing happens because by default this input element is text type. Copy this element and paste here. This is a checkbox, and put checkbox as the value of the type attribute. Save it and reload the page. Here is the checkbox. Now copy and paste it again. This is a radio option. Set the value to radio. Save it and reload the page. Here is the radio option. Copy the element again and paste it here. Input type is password. Replace the value with password. Save it and reload the page. It looks like another text box. However, if you type anything here, the characters will be hidden because it is a password type input element. Copy this element and paste it here. Input type is file. Change attribute value to file. Save it and reload the browser. Here you go. You can load a file now. Say you want to upload images only. However, this attribute is allowing every file. In this case, you need to use another attribute called accept and set the value to image/star. For that, copy this element and paste it here. It's for image only. Add accept attribute and set image/star as the value. Save it and reload the web page. This time the image formats are selected by default. Copy this element and paste it here. If you want to upload a particular type of image, for example PNG, then you have to set the value to image/png. Save the code and reload the web page. Click here. See, by default it will upload PNG now. Copy this element and paste it here. Say you want to upload PDF only. In this case, you have to set the attribute value to application/PDF. Save it and reload the page. This time, PDFs are allowed by default. That's enough about file. Copy the entire paragraph element and paste it here. Remove the accept attribute and set the value of type attribute to submit. This is a special input type. It is used to submit the form to the server. We haven't started the server-side development yet. That is why we will not use it now. Copy this element and paste it again. Set type equals reset. Save the code and reload the web page. Now put some dummy text in this field. If you hit the reset button, all the text will be gone. As we have the submit button now, we can show another input type, that is email. Copy this first input element, make a little space under it and paste it here. And change the value of type to email. Now put some text here and click on the submit button. You see, the browser throws an error message because this is not an email address. Now write an email address, for example, example@gmail.com. No error message this time. That's all about common type attributes of input element. There are some other attributes which we must have to use in the input element. We will know them later on. Let's focus on the text area now. It doesn't look nice because of its size. We can use rows and colts attribute to resize it. Set rows equals 5 and colts equals 50. Here colts is the short form for columns. Save the code and reload the page. Now the text area looks a lot nicer. Now let's learn more about select element. It requires option element inside it. The select element is used to select some options. So if options are not there, there is no point of using it, right? I'm going to create the option element using opening and closing option tag now. And in between, let's write option 1. Instead of writing same thing for multiple times, let's copy it and paste it for several times. Then change the text. Save it and reload the web page. Now the select element looks useful. By default, the first option will be visible here. If you want, you can use selected attribute to set any option you want to set at the first location. Save and reload. Now option 2 is at the first location. This attribute is little different. It does not come in name value pair. Instead of an option, if there were an instruction saying select an option, then it would look much better. For that, paste an option element here, write select an option, save the code and refresh the browser. Now there is an instruction saying select an option. However, this instruction itself is an option. That's not what we want. To fix it, we have to use disabled and selected attribute. The disabled attribute will disable this option. That means we will not be able to select it, and the selected option will keep it as the top option. Now it looks fine. It is telling the user to choose an option. That's all about form element. Now we will use these elements to create a complete HTML form. We are going to create an online job application form using these elements. Create a division. Let's create a heading that says online job application form. After that, I want a horizontal line. That's why I'm using HR tag. Now we can use a paragraph to add little instructions such as fill up the form properly, incomplete form will be discarded. Save it, reload the web page. We can see the heading, the horizontal line, and the paragraph. Now create a form element. Let's use a h2 tag and write personal information. Now I want a horizontal line after this heading. I believe you remember that we use h tag for horizontal line. Now create a paragraph to give a little instruction to the users about personal information. Save the code and reload the web page. Here is the paragraph. In the personal information, we'll start with username. The input type is going to be text. Save the code and reload the web page. Here is the input field for username. Now we are going to create input field for email address. Input type is email. Copy it and paste it here. Then address. The input type will be text. Copy it from here and paste it. Beside it, there should be an option asking for the city. We have to use select element to create such options. Copy it from here and paste it. From select an option, change it to select your city. Let's say the options are Dhaka, Sylhet, Rajshahi, and Khulna. Save the code and reload the web page. This is the field for username. You can write your email address here. This is for address, and from here you can select your city. Now let's use another H2 tag to create another section. I'll name it Job Selection. After that, I want a horizontal line. For that, using an HR tag. Now creating paragraph element to give an instruction to the users. It says, select the job from the list below. We're going to create the list using radio options. I'm going to put the options inside of a paragraph. Let's mention that a user can apply for one job only. And that's exactly what radio options do. It allows to choose only one option from a group of options. Instead of writing the code, I'm going to copy the code from here. The first job position is, say, front-end developer. Paste the radio option here. I want a line break after it. That is why I'm using a BR tag. The second one is, say, back-end developer. Paste the code again. And a BR tag for no line. The third one, let's make it the last one, is full stack web developer. Paste the code again. Now save the code and reload the web page. We can see the radio options. However, there is one problem. All three of these options can be selected. This is not how a radio option should behave. The reason of this problem is not grouping the options. Here, each line is representing individual radio option where only one option is available. In order to group them together and express them as different options of same group, we have to use name attribute and set the same value to it. Let's use name attribute in all three of these options and set the value to job selection. Save the code and reload the web page. This time it is working perfectly. I'm going to create another heading named Your Expertise. After that, another horizontal line. Then a small paragraph to instruct the user. Select the field you are expert in. You can use more than one field. And I guess you have understood that I'm going to use the checkbox here. Checkbox allows selecting more than one options at a time. Instead of writing the code again, I'm going to copy it from here. I want to organize the checkbox in a paragraph. That is why taking the paragraph tag. Say the options are HTML. Paste the code here. Next expertise is CSS. Paste the code. Going to a new line so that you can follow easily. I'm not using any BR tag here. That means in the browser there will be no new line. Then JavaScript and the code. After that, PHP. Paste the code. Then SQL and paste the code for once again. Save the code and reload the web page. Here are the checkboxes. You can express your expertise now. Now creating another heading. It says upload photo and CV. Then using an HR tag to create a horizontal line after it, and using a paragraph element to instruct the users. Here, users are allowed to upload PNG images and PDF of the CV only. Now creating another paragraph element. Instead of rewriting the code, I'm going to copy the code to upload PNG image and paste it here. Then using a BR tag to create a new line. I'm going to do the same thing for the code to upload PDFs. Save the code and reload the browser. Here are two buttons to upload photo and CV. Let's use another BR tag to create a little gap in between these two buttons. It looks much better now. Hit this button. It allows PNG image by default. Check this one. It allows PDFs by default. Now create an HR element to separate it from next section. Then create a paragraph element. Here we are going to place the submit and reset input type. Copy the code of submit input type and paste it here. Do the same for the reset. Save the code and reload the web page. Here is the submit button and here is the reset button. Now remove all of these elements. Save the code and reload the web page. Our form is ready. Let's fill up the form and click on Submit button. I'm not going to upload any photo or CV now and keeping them empty. When we hit the submit button, we can't see anything happening. We already know that it requires server-side integration to process these data. However, at least we should be able to see which data are being sent from here. It makes sense, doesn't it? However, unless we specify the name and value of the elements, nothing will be sent. Let's start assigning names and values to these elements. For this input element, name equals username. We do not need to set any value for text fields because whatever the user will type, that is the value. Name of this element is email. Let's name it address. The name of the select element is city. For radio options, each option represents separate choice. That is why we need to assign separate values for them. However, a group of radio options must have to have same name. Let's set the value for front-end developer, FD, the short form of the front-end developer. Value of back-end developer is BD, and value of full-stack web developer is FSD. Checkboxes are different from other elements. Multiple options can be selected here. Each of them has their own value. That is why they must have to be identified with unique names. Set the name of the HTML to HTML and the value is HTML. You can use any name or set any value you want. For CSS, name equals CSS, value equals CSS. For JavaScript, name equals JS and value equals JS. The name of the PHP is PHP and value is also PHP. For SQL, name equals SQL and value is SQL. Alright, now save the code, reload the web page, and fill up the form once again. Press the submit button. Now I want you to copy the URL from here and paste it in a text editor. Locate the username here and remove the text those are before it. These are the pieces of information we used in the form. Let's break this down to new lines so that you can follow easily. Here is the username. This is the email address. This is the address. City equals Dhaka. It is the option we chose using select element. Then the option we picked in the radio option, job selection equals FSD. Then all of the names and corresponding values of checkboxes are here. This is how the form sent information as name value pair and combine multiple pairs with ampersand. It doesn't seem right, does it? If the information we're sending is visible, where is the information security? This information was visible because by default the form used get method to send data. And set method equals post. If we use post method, then information will not be visible in the URL. Let's clean the values sent from the URL. Save the code and reload the web page. Fill up the form once again. Then hit the submit button. This time, the URL is clean. The information sent will not be visible here. However, they will be sent to the server. Now the question is, which page of the server will process these pieces of information? It is defined by action attribute. We set the name of the PHP page that will process the information as the value of action attribute. For example, pagehandler.php will process the information sent from this form. We will learn how to create this pagehandler.php and process the information sent from the form in PHP lesson. For this section, this is it. In the next section, we will learn how to create and use HTML links. It is going to be a very interesting section and I'll see you there.